pays his own bills, he makes his own money, and everything he puts his hands on turns great.
Donald Trump is one of the most polarising people on the entire planet. He's running for president of the United States again right now, but in this video, I'm not going to talk about Donald Trump, the politician. I took a deep dive into the businessman Donald Trump. Some will say that he's a legendary businessman that should be crowned and studied. And others will say that he's a fraudster and should literally be in prison. So in this video, I'm going to be sharing my revelations as to Donald Trump the businessman, how he really made his money, how he started, and how Donald Trump became Donald Trump. So how did Donald Trump actually get started? What was his very first move in business? Many people say that his dad is really the reason behind all of Donald Trump's success, but his dad was worth an estimated £3 million. But Donald Trump is now estimated to be worth billions of pounds. So if you're going to say it was his dad that gave him all the money, really is a little bit of a cop-out. There's something about Trump's business ways that helped him grow the portfolio that he's got. So what was his very first deal? But his first purchase was the Commodore Hotel when he was just 28 years old, which he bought for an estimated £10 million, and it needed £70 million renovation. The current owners of this hotel, Penn Central Railroad, were financially on their knees. They had a £10 million tax bill that they had to pay. They couldn't pay it. The hotel needed a massive renovation, and that's how he came in and bought it so cheap. Now, how did he manage to get the money to buy it? Well, this is where I do think Trump is very, very smart. He managed to persuade the Hyatt Hotel to partner with him on the deal. He said this will be a great Hyatt Hotel. In fact, he also managed to get the Hyatt Hotel, who were a big company at the time, big hotel business, to put money into his deal on the basis that they could then rent it and run it as a Hyatt Hotel. He also negotiated with New York City. Because New York City was on its knees financially, he said, look, me buying this building is going to be great for the economy. When the economy is struggling, that's the time to get in. Trump managed at 28 years old to negotiate with New York City a 40-year tax abatement scheme. The tax abatement would go on to cost the city of New York over $360 million and save Trump personally over $56 million over 40 years. This drastically reduced the risk of the project and also incentivized investors to come on board with the project. He also managed to find a company that would loan him the money for the £70 million estimated refurb construction costs of the hotel. A 34-storey hotel, renting out for £30 million a year, of which Trump was entitled to a big slice of that. After 6 years, when the hotel opened and all the money started pouring in, and now the economy's picking up, and now Donald Trump's making all this money, some of the New York officials decided to try and backtrack off of the tax abatement that they'd given Trump, and they actually sued him, and they lost in court. That was his first project. 28-year-old Donald Trump pulled off one of the most remarkable renovations in the history of the planet. Once Trump had proven what he could do with this Hyatt Hotel, he started using his skills, his negotiation skills, to buy more real estate buildings, more hotels, and he began to become a little bit of a hero, not just in New York City, but also across America. He bragged about how great he was, he showed off his skills of negotiation, but he really was a great salesperson, and he did know the real estate industry. New York City had a very famous ice rink in the center of New York City, which was kind of like a central hub and a monument where people would come and be together. But it was closed down, it was under renovations, and New York City Council was spending millions of pounds trying to get it restored and renovated, but it was dragging on for years and years, and Donald Trump publicly said, I could get this entire ice rink finished in 6 months, and I'd do it for just £2 million. That's how good I am. And New York City said, knock yourself out. So Donald Trump, personally, with his own money, he finished the ice rink. It took him 6 months, and he managed to do it under budget. This made him a hero. Maybe it was the best £2 million that he ever spent, because it was an investment. Not an investment that's going to give him financial return. But Donald Trump understood the investment of his brand and demonstrating to everybody how good he was as a property developer, that he could get things finished fast, that he could get things done in time and in budget. So everything was going really well for Donald Trump. Everything he was touching was turning to gold. And this is one of the things that even Donald Trump himself says. When you think everything you touch turns to gold, that's when things can come crashing down. It might shock you to know that Trump's biggest rival isn't a political one, or even a prominent business individual. The longest rivalry Donald Trump has goes back to the 1980s and is with none other than the NFL. The world-famous American Football League and Trump have over 40 years been in what is described as a pigskin war. Pete Rozelle, who was a commissioner of the NFL, said to Trump, "As long as I or my heirs are involved in the NFL, you will never be a franchise owner in the league." After being rejected several times by the NFL to buy one of their teams, Trump in 1984 came very close to actually buying one. He bid $50 million on the Dallas Cowboys, a team that was then in a string of chronic losses and was desperate for a sale. Just before the deal went through, Trump withdrew his bid, saying he feels sorry for the guy who buys the Dallas Cowboys. We don't know the exact reason he pulled out of the deal, potentially financial, or perhaps a way of slighting the NFL as a whole. But what we do know, though, is it is a decision Trump would live to regret. Instead, Trump thought that he'd get better value for money, so he went to the NFL's biggest competitors, the USFL. The USFL is basically an off-brand version of the NFL. It's much smaller and makes considerably less money. They even play at different times of the year as to avoid direct competition with the NFL. Trump bought the New Jersey Generals, a team that was not only in a much lower league of the NFL, but were losing in that league. He purchased for between 5 and 10 million. The USFL was delighted to have Trump attached. As a new and obscure league, the publicity that Trump gave them was invaluable. Unfortunately, this optimism wasn't held for long. Trump became obsessed with attacking the NFL, so decided to move the USFL league from the spring, where they wouldn't compete with the NFL, into the fall. In addition to moving the play season of the league, Trump convinced the league to sue the NFL. And this is where things started to really go wrong. He argued that the NFL had a monopoly on viewership because of the unjust deals with television companies who were purposely stopping the USFL from having a network share. The lawsuit aimed to either achieve monetary compensation for the USFL, to void contracts between the NFL and TV networks, or, what more people thought, to trigger a merger between the USFL and the NFL, therefore leading Trump to achieving his dream of owning a team in the NFL. The lawsuit was heavily publicized, and to everyone's surprise, the court ruled in favor of the USFL. The USFL was awarded damages from the NFL that came to a staggering $1, which were later tripled to $3. The court case cost millions, and only 6 days after the ruling, the USFL went bankrupt. His hubris and disdain for the NFL led him to not only lose money, but to bankrupt the entire football league. To add insult to injury, the Dallas Cowboys, the NFL team Trump almost bought in 1984 for $50 million, went on to turn their string of losses around and were in 2018 valued at $5 billion. Trump's massive confidence and his ego was almost his best friend, but also at times his worst enemy. This whole massive loss over the NFL not only cost him a lot of money, potentially hurt his reputation, but also took so much of his time and resources and brain power, but now some of his hotels and his real estate businesses were also suffering. Because of the way Trump grew his businesses, which was very much heavily leveraged on debt, at one point Trump says that he was in £1 billion worth of debt. When you've got a lot of debt, just the smallest thing, like a little bit of interest rate rise, can really hit you. To make things even harder, 3 of his executives that headed up all the casinos died in a helicopter crash, which left Trump having to pick up the pieces. One of his casinos was in such a bad way that Trump's dad sent his bookkeeper to come into the casino and to spend £3 million buying chips that were never used, and that made Trump just about survive through the 90s. Despite all the immense pressure, Trump did keep on going. He kept on going and he never quit. And that's something that you can never say about Trump, no matter how much you hate him in business. He is not a quitter. He describes a story one time where he was almost bankrupt. He was on his knees financially. He was thinking, do I even want to go to work tonight? He had a network meeting booked to go to some dinner where there was these bankers, and he thought, do I really even want to bother going? But he got his suit on and he went anyway. And he just so happened to be sat next to a banker who ended up giving him a big loan, which bailed him out. He kept on going, come what may. He also knew his worth. In the early 2000s, he was approached by TV with the hit show, The Apprentice. Many people laughed and said that it was a rubbish idea, it would never be successful, but Trump pressed on and made The Apprentice one of the most widely watched business shows throughout the entire history of TV. Now at the time, the biggest hit TV show on TV at the time was Friends. And he knew that the actors of Friends were paid $1 million each. So when he was asked about The Apprentice, he said, you know what, I think this could be bigger than Friends. I'll do it, but I want to be paid the same that the Friends actors are paid. And they said, that's fine, we can definitely match $1 million. And Trump said, there's 6 of them. That's $6 million. I'll do it, and I'll make it huge, and it will be amazing, but I want $6 million per episode. He ended up making an approximate £214 million from The Apprentice and coming up with the very famous slogan, which is, "You're fired." So in conclusion, is Trump a brilliant businessman? I think it's hard to argue that he's a very good negotiator, an excellent salesperson, and really understands the power of personal branding. It does appear that his ego and his emotions at times have got the better of him and have actually hindered him in business, but his vision and his tenacity is something that I can only respect. But let me know in the comments, what do you think about Donald Trump as a businessman? Good? Bad? Ugly? Let me know in the comments.